You're holding on to something right now that's quietly costing you your future. A half-built project, a skill you learned 2 years ago, a version of yourself you outgrew, but keep defending like it's sacred ground. The moment you own a thing, your brain starts lying to you about what it's worth, and that lie is keeping you smaller than you want to be. There's a clean experiment behind this. Researchers hand half a room a coffee mug and ask, "What would you sell it for?" Then they ask the other half what they'd pay to buy one. Same mug, same room. The owners demand roughly double what the buyers will offer. Nothing changed about the object, only who was holding it. That gap has a name in behavioral economics: the endowment effect. The second something becomes yours, it inflates. Your brain treats giving it up as a loss, and losses sting about twice as hard as equivalent gains feel good. So you cling, you overprice, you keep the mug. Now swap the mug for your actual life. The first business idea you ever had. The editing style you spent a year perfecting. The morning routine you built when you were a different person with different goals. You're walking around as the proud owner of 100 mugs, and you're charging future you double to let any of them go. Here's where it gets personal. The endowment effect runs strongest on the things you can't put on a shelf: your beliefs, your identity, the story you tell about who you are and what you're good at. You bought that story with years of effort, so your brain prices it like a rare asset. Think about the last skill you refused to drop even after it stopped paying off. Maybe you went deep on a platform that's dying. Maybe you mastered a tool the market moved past. You knew somewhere that it was time to pivot. But pivoting meant selling the mug back for less than you paid. And that felt like admitting you'd been robbed. So you held. And while you held, the thing kept depreciating in your hands. That's the trap nobody warns you about when you choose to build your own path. The very ownership that makes you committed also makes you blind. Watch how it shows up in money first, because money is where the bias is easiest to catch in the act. You buy a course. It's mediocre. You finish it anyway because you paid. You start a project, sink 3 weeks into it, realize it's going nowhere, and keep grinding for 3 more weeks because quitting would waste the first 3. Economists call that throwing good time after bad. Your brain calls it loyalty. The money's already gone. The weeks are already gone. The only thing you control is the next hour, and you're handing it to a corpse because you can't stand to bury it. So why does the brain do this? Why guard a sunk loss so fiercely? Because ownership rewires perception itself. When something is yours, you start noticing its good features more and its flaws less. Studies on the endowment effect show owners' attention drifts toward reasons to keep and away from reasons to release. You're defending the asset instead of evaluating it. And a defense lawyer never goes looking for evidence against their own client. Sit with that, because it changes what being objective about yourself even means. You think you're assessing your project, your skill set, your direction with clear eyes. You're the owner in the witness box, and you've got a financial stake in the verdict. Now here's the part that flips it. If owning something inflates its value, then the rarest skill you can build is the willingness to sell, to let go on purpose, to look at the thing you're proudest of and ask the buyer's question instead of the owner's. If I didn't already have this, how much would I pay to get it today? That single reframe is a scalpel. It works on more than projects. Run it on the identity you've been wearing. You spent your early 20s becoming the disciplined one, or the creative one, or the one who does it all alone. That label earned you real things. Now ask the buyer's question about it. If you met that identity as a stranger today, would you pick it up for the next decade of your life? Sometimes yes. Sometimes you realize you've been defending a self that fit the person you were at 19 and chokes the person you're trying to become. Try it on your current main project. Pretend you woke up this morning and it didn't exist. Someone offers to sell it to you exactly as it stands for the price of the next 6 months of your life. Do you buy? If your gut hesitates, you just found a mug you've been overpricing. The hesitation is the data. This is the move most people never make because the bias is invisible from the inside. It feels like wisdom. It feels like commitment, grit, staying the course. And quitting culture gets mocked for good reason. Most people quit too early, right before the compounding kicks in. That part is real. But the endowment effect is the opposite failure wearing the same clothes. It keeps you loyal to things that already failed, and it calls that loyalty a virtue. So, how do you tell the difference between grit and just clinging? Grit is paying for a future that still has a pulse. Clinging is paying for a past that's already dead. The test is direction. Is the cost you're about to spend buying tomorrow, or just honoring yesterday's receipt? When you stop asking, how much have I put in? And start asking, what does the next dollar actually buy? The fog clears fast. There's a guy I think about sometimes. Spent 4 years building an audience on one platform. Tens of thousands of followers. Real numbers. Then the platform's reach collapsed. Everyone could see it. He kept posting into the void for another year, because walking away meant admitting those 4 years bought him less than he thought. The day he finally started fresh somewhere new, he rebuilt that audience in 5 months. The 4 years were never the asset. His ability to grow an audience was he'd been guarding the trophy and ignoring the muscle that won it. You're carrying muscles you mistake for trophies right now. The skills are portable. The follower count, the specific project, the old identity, those are just the trophies that particular muscle earned. And when you confuse the two, you defend the trophy and let the muscle decide who you are forever. This is the quiet reframe that hands you real leverage. You are the engine that produces the things, not the things themselves. The endowment effect tricks you into identifying with the output instead of the machine. So every time the output needs to change, it feels like a death. It's a release of inventory. Picture your whole life as a portfolio you actively manage. Most people manage theirs the way a hoarder manages a garage. Everything stays because everything once mattered. The skilled investor does the unnatural thing. They look at each holding cold, ignore what they paid, and ask only what it'll return from here. They sell winners that have peaked. They cut losers without ceremony. They feel the same loss sting you do. They just refuse to let it sign the checks. There's a reason this feels so hard, and it helps to name it. For most of human history, holding on to what you had was survival. The person who guarded their tools and territory outlived the one who casually traded them away. That instinct is ancient, and it served your ancestors well. It just happens to be terrible advice for someone trying to build a life that requires constant pivoting, shedding, and rebuilding. Your wiring is optimized for a scarcity your generation mostly doesn't face. You're playing a game of abundance with a brain that thinks every loss is a famine. You can run your life that way starting today. Become honest about your past's price instead of heartless about its memory. Walk through your inventory this week. The project that's been almost ready for 3 months. The skill you keep sharpening because it's comfortable, even as the market drifts past it. The belief about your limits you've owned so long it feels like furniture. Hold each one up and ask the buyer's question. Most you'll keep, and now you'll keep them on purpose, which is its own kind of power. A few you'll finally put down. And the relief that floods in when you do is the clearest sign you've been paying rent on them for years. Here's the uncomfortable edge, the part the clean version leaves out. Letting go has a real cost, and the bias isn't purely a malfunction. Sometimes the thing you're clinging to sits 1 inch from paying off, and dropping it means you eat the loss for nothing. There's no formula that tells you which is which with certainty. Anyone selling you one is selling you a mug. What you get is better questions and the nerve to act on the answers before the evidence is comfortable. Because comfortable evidence arrives too late to be worth anything. The people building lives that are actually theirs aren't the ones with the best ideas. They're the ones who can drop a good idea for a better one without mourning it for a year first. They treat ownership as a tool they pick up and set down instead of a cage they decorate and live inside. So look at the thing you're most proud of having built, the one you defend hardest in that courtroom. Ask it the only question that matters. If I were free of you right now, would I choose you again, knowing everything I know? If yes, recommit with both hands.